daylight savings time. Your thing says we're scheduled to go in an hour. of a few words, but much wisdom. Boss is here because the mention of KB Buller smoked him out of hiding. Dev Goes Fishing is here. Mary Chang, always here to kind of regulate and keep us under control. So yeah, it's gang's all here. Let's do this. What an electrifying night of fights. I mean, we'll get to the letter grade last of all, but I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is 2 weeks in a row that we have something that is at least going to be in the team photo for event of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week we asked, what were you more excited about, last week's card or this week's card? And it was right after last week's card. So I said, well, UFC 268 was more exciting, on paper, but how you going to top UFC 267, Glover Teixeira with the title? There was like flying knee knockouts. We had all this stuff. UFC 268 might have delivered. It was that good, top to bottom. There wasn't a dull moment the entire card. I mean, even the John Vellante fight had an exciting moment. So let's get into it. We had 2 title fights. We had a fight that was being talked about as fight of the year. Might have actually lived up to the hype. Let's get right into it. Main event, we had one of the most heated rivalries of all time. Kamaru Usman taking on Colby Covington for the second time. Their first fight for the welterweight title was an absolute classic, was a fight of the year candidate. I don't think the second fight was as good as the first fight, but it was still pretty damn good.
It was still very good, and I was taken by surprise. I said on the preview, I expected Usman to have an easier time this time, that I thought the strides he had made in his striking were going to make Covington just look further behind him. And for about a round and a half, I felt pretty good about that. But then Covington just turned the jets on and made a hell of a fight out of this.
So let me ask you this, and I wasn't prepared to ask you this, but when you think of rivalries and all-time great rivalries, do you need a kind of trilogy where one guy wins 2, one guy wins 1, or at least 2 fights where the guys split? Or can we have a great rivalry where it's 2-0?
I think we can have a great rivalry where it's 2-0. Chuck and Tito. Tito and Ken Shamrock. Vanderlei and Rampage. I mean, the other guy in some of these cases got one back like 10 years later.
Sure.
But that didn't make the rivalry for me.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about the all-time greatest rivalries, now what I love about this rivalry is a couple things. One, there's very strong sides. You are either pro Kamaru Usman, or you might not even be pro Kamaru Usman. You might just be anti Colby Covington, or you're in the Covington camp. You love him. You love his stick. So one great thing about the rivalry is it wasn't just a rivalry between the fighters. The fans were a little bit of a rivalry. You saw it at the weigh-ins yesterday. The Colby came out first. Seemed like it was a Colby. Sorry, not the weigh-ins. The press conference. Seemed like it was a very pro press conference. And then there was moments where there was big chants for Kamaru. That's one thing I loved. The also thing that made this rivalry so great, and this likely the last time we see them face each other, not completely out of the realm of possibility, but probably, is how competitive the fights were. Even when it looked like Kamaru Usman was going to put Colby Covington away in the second round and it wasn't going to be competitive, as you mentioned, Colby came roaring back. A lot of people gave him the last 3 rounds.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd like to talk about the scoring
Sure.
a little bit, because tonight I ended up scoring the entire card as one of Sherdog's virtual scorers.
Yeah, I saw
but
that.
Tonight, Twitter was giving me hell over some of our scorecards more than usual, and they really let me have it on my score for Usman versus Covington, and you and I both scored it 49-46. Giving Covington rounds 4 and 5. Usman.
I didn't score at 49-46. I scored at 48-46.
48-46. Okay, so
I had it 3 rounds to 2, but I gave the second round a 10-8 for Usman. I gave Usman the first 3 rounds. I gave Covington.
Sorry, 48-46 was.
So we had it the same.
Yeah, we did have it the same.
So I gave Usman 3 rounds. I gave Covington 2 rounds.
Like, people gave me crap about giving round 2 to Usman 10-8, and I was like, I didn't have to think that hard about that.
Yeah,
if we're talking about damage, dominance, and duration, he won every minute of that round, and that was even before he knocked him down twice.
Yeah.
He had Covington in all kinds of trouble. That was pretty much the definition of a 10-8 round that didn't involve a mauling on the ground to me.
Yeah.
The thing that I felt less comfortable with was round 3, because I have no problem with somebody that gave Covington round 3, and if you give Covington round 3, 4, and 5, then we have a draw.
Yeah, so let's do this. Let's ask the people in the chat, and we got a lot of our usuals, and if anybody's new that has never checked out our show before, one thing we just asked, we asked you to be active. If you're watching on YouTube, jump in the chat. One thing we like to say, we don't make fun of anybody. If you have a different opinion here, we don't make fun of you. We ask that everyone to be respectful, be peaceful, be nice to each other, be good to each other. I mean, we're all watching this at 1 o'clock in the morning, or or some very late, either early morning hours or very late somewhere. So let's be nice to each other. Let's not be dicks. But what I want everyone to tell me what their scorecard was, and I'll start throwing out what people's scorecard was. You had it 48-46. I had it the same exact way.
Yep.
Austin Janola had it 49-46 Usman, so he went 4 rounds to 1 for Usman. One thing I'll say is even the rounds, there was probably the second round is the only round where it was a decisive round for somebody, where there's no debate. Second round is Kamaru Usman. Probably the first round, there wasn't too much action, a big feeler out round, but I leaned towards Usman. I gave the third round to Usman. Now, had my usual buddies over. It was 5 or 6 of us. One guy was very biased for Colby. He's an Irish guy. He was rooting for Colby and this and that. And I said, Colby, he got the takedown in that round. I still gave Usman the third round. And then I gave Covington the last 2. But it seemed like the last 3 rounds, and it seemed like a lot more people gave Covington the 4th. So maybe the round 3 and 5 are the ones that were very debated. What you scored. Which round did you give Covington?
Yeah, Austin, which round did you give Covington if you only gave him 1? But I thought all 3 of, the last 3 rounds were all very, very close. And in particular, round 3, I have no problem with someone who gave round 3, 4, and 5 to Covington.
Yeah.
And if you gave Usman a 10-8 second round, then you have a draw. And you know what? That fight felt even enough that I don't have a problem giving it a draw.
Yeah. So I saw a lot of guys on. So I'm scrolling through Twitter after I set in my pick to MMA Decisions, and I'm seeing what people are scoring. And Luke Wilson had a 48-47 Usman. Kyle Lottie had 48-47 Usman. And I apologize if I say anybody's name wrong. Just tell me and I'll try to say it better. Bass had it 48-47 Usman. So it seems like everyone here gave it to Usman. But I checked Twitter, and I'd say the majority of people gave it to Usman. But there are people out there that I really respect that did score the fight for Colby Covington. I think Alex K. Lee of MMA Fighting, he scored it for Colby Covington. I saw Drake Riggs score and he's with a bunch of outlets, but he scored it for Colby Covington. I believe, I don't have, I'm sure, actually, I can go over MMA Decisions and see some other names, but.
Yeah, I saw Drake scored it for Covington.
I saw a draw. Someone scored it a draw. I think, I forget who it was, but somebody else scored it a draw.
And again, a draw, 47-47 would be my second favorite scorecard after what I gave it.
So we had a pretty good night in our picks. I think I went
11 of 14. I was 12 of 14.
Yeah, so we both had a really good night. You had a really good.
The difference was the Halloween candy fight.
Yeah. We'll talk about it. We're going to save the people's main event till later. Mabay, I apologize if I say your name wrong. She gave the last 2 rounds to Kobe. I'll say this. Bass says he can't really see anybody giving Kobe. I gave Kobe the 5th round. I think Usman had more output in the 5th round, but I thought Kobe had the bigger shots. I actually thought when there was a moment when someone was rocked, it was Usman. So I want to say this. So we both had really good night in my picks, our picks. We both picked Kamaru Usman to win, and I felt like we really broke down this fight well. And I think we got it right in 2 ways, because I thought we broke down the best way for Kamaru Usman to win. I also thought we broke down the best way for Colby Covington to win. And when he followed, and I'm not saying he should listen to us, but when he did what we said we thought he should do, then I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. Somebody's saying Colby should win. Colby robbed. Call the police. I don't know. There's always one. Colby. If Colby followed the strategy, I thought he would have won. And what I mean by that is, one thing I talked about was the 3 ranges. I thought all the way out is Usman, mid pocket is Covington, all the way in is Usman. And we had a lot of all the way out moments in this fight, especially the first 3 rounds. And that's where Usman just kind of got in his range, threw his straight shots where he's very technically sound. That's where you see the jab. That's where you see his straight right. That's the punch that hurt Colby in the second. And he's got a lot of power at the end of his strikes. And then the all the way in, I didn't like that because, as I think it was Bass said, the size difference of Kamaru Usman, he's much bigger than Colby. You can see that the shooting in underneath and getting stuck under the bigger guy, I don't like that idea. Obviously, he did. And to his credit, I know the broadcast was debating it. Colby should have gotten a takedown. I mean, that was a clear 2-point takedown. But when Colby created that chaos with his nickname in the pocket, he was winning. And he was rocking Usman and is hurting him. And I thought that he needed to get to the pocket and unload huge amount of volume, more volume than he had in the first fight, if that was possible. And instead, he did the opposite. He started standing back. He looked for like one punch. He was trying to knock him out with one shot, which is never Colby's game. And he fought completely different than what he normally does. But and I know I'm talking a lot. I'm going to let you jump in a second. But when he fought the way Colby should, he was having great success. Talk to me about 2 things. Talk to me, one, about what Usman did good, and then tell me, 2, if you agree with my assessment on Colby.
I completely agree with your assessments, and this fight was decided by inches. Like 1 round going the other way would have resulted in a draw or a win for Covington. And just a few little mistakes he made along the way. The biggest mistake I can think of was, I believe it was round 4, when he had Usman obviously hurt with a punch and then shot from way too far away and just got pancaked on. That might have cost him the fight right there. It's tantalizingly close. You asked off the top if there can be a noteworthy rivalry where one fighter's 2-0 over the other. My best answer to that is that this fight left me wanting to see a third fight. Okay. Even though Usman's already beaten him twice.
Yeah. I think I would look forward to this fight 2 years from now if Colby goes, wins 3 more in the division. Usman's still defending. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't want it to be rushed soon. And and if there's another contender, you kind of always have to go with the other contender over Colby for the time being. So I agree with that. And some of the guys just jump and point out, some people in the chat, what's up to my buddy Corey Gronfield all the way from Michigan. He's a great dude. He's a friend of mine. So please be nice to Mr. Corey Gronfield. I'll say this about Colby and Usman. I agree with what you said. And I believe with the right strategy, even though he's 0-2, Colby could win this fight. And somebody, I believe it was Luke, that said he looked really nervous. And I actually agree with that. I try not to look into that stuff. But I remember the first fight.
He was shy of the power.
He was shy of the power, which if you makes a lot of sense. If the last time you faced this guy, the last time you saw this guy in the cage, you were knocked on your ass and rumored, we'll say, to have a broken jaw. You at least said to your corner, I think I have a broken jaw. Well, Colby fought the last 3 rounds of the first fight with a broken jaw, if that's true, better than he fought the first 3 rounds of this fight with a completely healthy jaw.
Yeah.
I hated Colby's strategy. I hated it.
It took 2 full rounds for Colby to go, okay, when he hits me, yeah, it hurts, but my jaw didn't just instantly crumble into dust and I woke up 3 weeks later. I can take a shot from this guy. And once he got past that fear, again, he took over. I mean, if you scored the last 3 rounds of the fight, like Pride style, he won the last 3 rounds of the fight. Regardless of whether you gave him 2 of those
as
rounds or 3 or only 1. But as a whole, he was taking over that fight.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we didn't have any controversy. And I mean, I know some people gave the fight to Colby scoring. if we had, like you just mentioned the last 3 rounds as pride scoring, if we had one championship or pride scoring the entire fight, then there's definitely no brainer. It was Kamaru Usman.
There is something I'd like to bring up. Newcomer Mbaye has asked a couple different ways in the chat, like how or why did Usman get away with so much stuff? I'm like, he actually got pretty far into filling out his bingo card there. I mean, he got warned not to grab the fence. He got an eye poke. He got some shots to the back of the head. I mean, we didn't get a nut shot.
I think he grabbed the cage twice. Didn't he grab it twice?
Yeah. So I remember at least once where like Mergliata was like practically going to swat his hand away. I don't think of Usman as like an outright dirty fighter, but I wouldn't have had a problem with him getting a point taken away for that eye poke because he had been warned before.
Imagine if we did.
Literally, if he did, then again,
we'd have a draw. We'd have a draw tonight because it was 248-47 scorecard. We would have had a majority draw.
But what I will say is about the strikes to the back of the head, I don't think it's a case of getting away with it so much as in a couple cases where I've seen him hit someone on the back of the head. It's when all the moving parts are moving. So like some guy's moving, trying to get a takedown on him. He's moving a different way. He's like hitting 4 hammer fists, and if you mark those out, they're going right across the back of the person's head. So like one does happen to land on the restricted area, but it's not like he's just like wailing and like hitting like 5 targeted shots to the back of the head on purpose. I think, considering how slow refs are to call fouls in general, when it's something that's just obviously in the flow of what's happening and there are 2 people tangoing there, like they're going to swallow their whistle.
Yeah, so it's really tough because there's a couple of things that in play here. You mentioned back of the head, a fence grab, and eye poke. And when we think of those 3 fouls, we almost think like the most effective is back of the head punches. Like that really changed. If you've ever been punched in the back of the head, it sucks. There's a reason why it's illegal. Then obviously eye pokes you can't see. Eye pokes of the 3 is the most common. And then fence grabs. But I actually think in this fight, the effect was probably more in the reverse order. Like grabbing the fence when Colby's using all his energy trying to get a takedown, I think that actually has a more effect. Now, before we say, I am not making excuses for Colby Covington. I don't think Colby Covington lost because Almeida is saying he forgot about headbutt. That I don't think that was intentional. That seemed like both people coming in when they clashed. But Colby got the worst of the headbutt. Mm-hmm. There was more top of Usman's head compared to the face, but they both were coming in, so I don't blame Usman for that. But I'll say this, and I forgot where I was going with this for a second. But I don't think Colby lost this fight because of a fence grab or because of an eye poke or because of any of the fouls. I think Colby lost this fight, plain and simple, because I thought he had the worst possible strategy for this fight as possible. I thought he fought for the first 3 rounds, Usman fight, and still almost won. And some people's scorecard won, which is why I'm going to say something very, very controversial. Colby Covington with the right strategy wins this fight. Yep. If he turns up the volume in the beginning of the 3rd round instead of the end of the 3rd round, he might win. But I'll say this.
Agreed.
One, I've always had an issue with the back of the head shots, and I don't want to stress too much on this because, again, I don't think it had as big of an output. I've always said it should be behind the ears. It's so obvious. There's these 2 giant things that stick out of everybody's head that makes it really easy to see if you're behind the ear or not. The whole mohawk thing, that's an issue. It's hard. It's hard to tell. Where's a mohawk? What is it? I don't know how, because there's no set structure. Okay, in amateur wrestling, if you lock hands 2 times, or you lock hands, it's a point. The second time is another point. Third time is 2 points. 4th time, you're disqualified. There's a set. Do we need something like that? Do we need a set? 1 foul's a warning, 2 fouls a point. Do we need something like that?
I would be absolutely fine with that for eye pokes.
Okay.
Because and we had to say this within the last 2 weeks, but even if they're not intentional, they're negligent. Like if you're accidentally poking somebody in the eye, like every other fight, then you need to change how you hold your hands. Like I would be fine with that for a lot of fouls that I think are undercalled. Like I wouldn't do that for like groin shots because again, that's a product of like 2 people moving, and you can be throwing a perfectly clean kick that just ends up hitting somebody in the cup because of the way they were moving. Yeah. But things that like nobody ever accidentally grabs the fence.
Yeah. I want to move on because I don't want to spend too much time on this, and I definitely want to read some of what people are talking about in the chat. Corey throws out that the strategy of Colby in the first 2 rounds cost him the fight. I think that, and I don't want to just say it was also the strategy. Let's give credit to the credit too. Kamaru Usman, who we have on Sherdog, and I'm assuming he'll still stay at the remaining top spot, the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. There was a time during Kamaru Usman's run in the UFC where you had to stay away from the clinch. You had to stay away from the inside. You wanted to stay away from the cage because he's going to close the distance. That's not the case anymore with Kamaru Usman. Now you almost don't want to be on the outside because the outside used to be the safe zone. Get on the outside, throw kicks, throw jabs, move, whatever. Now, if you stay on the outside, his jab is on point. His straight right is on point. And let's point out, Colby fought the fight that Usman wanted, but Usman still capitalized on those moments.
One thing I'll throw out, and I'm not critiquing Kamaru Usman's striking in particular. I think it's come a huge way, under Trevor Whitman's tutelage, to the point where he is a plus striker instead of just a really strong guy who swings hard. But just one quirk of his preferences is his head is out ahead of him. I think he's always going to have quite a few clash of heads compared to other fighters.
Sure.
And it's the reason why he was wide open for the uppercut in those later rounds once Colby started actually throwing it.
Yeah. And that's also part of his wrestling. Lead him with your head when you're wrestling, you're spearing a guy, stuff like that on your takedown. So that makes a lot of sense. In the chat, and credit to the guys in the chat, they're really talking up. They're being great. People are talking about the strategy. Usman has power, it seems, and he has great power, and they keep talking about it. He has power and it's coming down the pipe. But when you can get him throwing wild, which is kind of the early narrative about Usman before that he throws wild, but when he throws wild, that was when Colby was coming inside with things. He was winning the inside battle instead of the outside battle. But when they were from outside of range, it was the opposite. Colby was throwing this big, weird uppercut that didn't come close to touching Usman. And I know he's throwing the uppercut later. I'm talking about the one he was throwing from the outside that it looked like a Mike Tyson's punch out when you do that big uppercut. But everything else that Usman was doing from the outside, he was winning the inside battles, the straight right, the jab, everything was winning. So that's what it came down to me. Who was winning the inside battles? Outside it was Usman, inside it was Covington. So let's move on. We kind of did the X's and O's. We both scored it for Usman. Seen with the majority of guys and girls. And he has scored it Usman. This couple people put out on Twitter. I have no issue if someone gave Covington the fight. If they gave him the last 3 rounds, I'm okay with it. I thought it was going to be hard to pull off when you got dropped. I want to ask a very controversial question. And right away, people, and I'm just asking the question, don't kill the messenger. I just want to ask a question, and it's going to be a 2-part question. I'm going to give you blind resumes, and it's not going to be that hard to figure out. Okay? Blind resume. 15, this is Fighter A. Fighter A, 15-0 in the UFC, 5 title defenses. Fighter B, 18-2 in the UFC, 9 title defenses. Blind resume, who's better? And I know that's not fair. I know it's not fair without not all wins in the UFC is equal, but play with me. And I know you know who the 2 guys are, but 15-0 in the UFC, 5 title defenses, 18-2 in the UFC, 9 title defenses. I
mean, I'd take the second guy.
Okay.
Blind, that sounds like a more impressive legacy.
Okay. But how close is Fighter A to Fighter B?
They're in the same team photo. That's not that far off.
Okay. So, obviously, the 2 people I'm talking about, if you haven't figured it out, Fighter A is our current welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman. He's 15-0. He has his 5th successful title defense. Fighter B is a fighter that many people consider, everyone considers the greatest welterweight of all time. Many consider him the greatest fighter of all time. Are you shaking your head? Is somebody not considering him? I mean, Tyron Woodley maybe doesn't consider him the greatest welterweight. Who?
Dana White at the presser about 20 minutes ago said that Kamaru Usman is the greatest welterweight of all time.
Well, I mean, can you blame him?
You and I work against recency bias, or if we're falling to recency bias, we'll admit it. We're like, okay, I know I'm really excited about this right now, but tell me why this isn't the case. And then Dana White will do that shit, and I just want to flip my desk.
Yeah, in fairness though, anything Dana White says, and I don't know where you stand on Dana White. I know a lot of people in the media they're blatant Dana White haters. I am not, and actually, in a sense, I almost defend him because of the straight Dana White haters, that I would actually probably be considered one of these fanboys, which I am obviously not. He's also a promoter. He's also making money off of Kamaru Usman. He also has future times to make money off Kamaru Usman. He also knows that George St. Pierre was a mega star. Well, how did he make Kamaru Usman? Well, he just had one of his biggest nights. It was in Madison Square Garden against Colby Covington, a heated rival who sells the pay-per-view. I think it probably was a successful pay-per-view. But let's start talking him in that Michael Jordan, LeBron James debate kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I don't blame him.
He's just being a promoter. But
I don't blame a promoter for doing that.
But there are millions of fans who weren't here for GSP's heyday, and they just accept that when he says it uncritically. So it's like, dude,
I would have much more. I would have much more
like
issue.
Digging a latrine under your own Hall of Fame.
Okay, so there's somebody out there in media right now who agrees with Dana White's statement. I'm not gonna say Dana White's opinion because I don't know if it's his opinion, but his statement. Someone we respect. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's Jay Petrie. Maybe it's Mike Fridley. Maybe it's whoever. It's Ed Carvajal. Somebody. Someone might tweet that out. Someone might tweet out Kamaru Usman has passed George St. Pierre as the greatest welterweight of all time. The whole reason why I wanted to bring this up is not saying that I believe that he has passed him, but simply that it's not a irrational statement.
No.
It is not a just throw it out, how crazy are you? That's the worst. Austin's asking for the awards game. We'll do this.
They're out and I know what they are.
Okay, Ben has the awards, so let's do this. If you haven't seen the awards yet, right after we're done wrapping up the main event, we'll play the awards game before we move on. So Ben will be the host. So don't throw it out, guys, in the chat what the awards are. We like to guess together. But all I'm saying is, if someone says that Kamaru Usman is the greatest welterweight of all time, disagree with them. Just state why you disagree with them, but don't be like, oh my God, that's so dumb. It's clearly George St. Pierre. Because I still agree that George St. Pierre is the greatest welterweight, but Kamaru Usman is catching up. And he's catching up fast. He's won 15. He's 15-0 in the UFC. He's beaten some big, big names. Colby Covington twice, Jorge Masvidal twice, Gilbert Burns, Damian Maia, Tyron Woodley. Who am I forgetting? There's others. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Before we move on, let me ask about Colby Covington. He's now 0-2 in the welterweight title fight. The actual title fight, not the interim. Has he fallen in that Alexander Gustafsson situation where he's been so close to getting a title shot? So close to winning the title. Because think about this. 2 fights in a row, if Colby Covington wins the 5th round, he's the welterweight champion of the world.
Yep. Like, he was tantalizingly, agonizingly close.
Let me ask you, before we move on, we'll do the matchmaking stuff, and then we'll play the awards game. There are people who absolutely love Colby Covington. There's absolutely nothing he could do to change that. There's some people who absolutely hate Colby Covington. There's absolutely nothing he could do to change that. How many people do you think Colby Covington made fans of during these Kamaru Usman fights? Just from the pure toughness performances he did against the best fighter in the world.
I bet there have to be some.
I agree. But I mean, we saw that. I think we saw that at the press conference. And people like dogs. I mean, I don't know if Michael Chandler was the most popular fighter in the UFC, but he's got to be pretty damn popular after tonight.
Yes.
All right, let's do this. You want to matchmake Colby next, or you want to matchmake the champion next?
I would say let's go ahead and matchmake the champ.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Let's do this. Guys, put out who should be. Now, this is not who's going to be. We're not predicting who's going to be the next. We're saying if you ran the UFC, you're the ultimate. This is not a union. This is not a league. You're the ultimate dictator. You have all say who fights next Kamaru Usman, I'll go first. Actually, Ben, I'll let you go first because I gotta have like A and B,
Okay.
which I'm assuming you probably will too.
If I'm the true dictator of the universe, I bust up the Edwards Masvidal fight.
Okay.
And I make Edwards versus Usman.
Okay.
Otherwise, in the real world, if Edwards wins, it's Edwards. Otherwise, it's Vicente Luque.
Okay, we're the same exact way. Same exact situation. If Jorge Masvidal wins, sucks to be you. You got a really good win over Leon Edwards. He's more of a loser than you are a winner.
Yeah.
Is that what everyone kind of has? Everyone else kind of has the same thing? Leon Edwards gets it if he wins. If he doesn't, we're going with Vicente Luque? Is there a third name out there that we're not thinking of? Somebody else would rather see? I'll leave it out there. While you guys are doing that, let's...
Boss says Khabib.
Yeah, well, Khabib... I'll say this. So to play this little game, we like to do the pick up the phone, who's get the phone call. I kind of do a 1 through 5 of the weight classes on my phone in my like notes section. And I always have these trump guys. We used to be calling the Money in the Bank, that WWE... I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Gimmick. I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to insult, right? Because wrestling fans are Pat. So I'm not trying to insult wrestling fans. I'm trying to take something from wrestling and saying, hey, this is a cool thing. So and I'm gonna explain it real quick. In wrestling, and I apologize, guys, if I have this wrong. I'm not a wrestling guy, but I think I have it right. They have some kind of tournament, some kind of match, some kind of something. I don't know how it happens, but a fighter or wrestler wins a match and they get what they call the Money in the Bank, where at any time they can show up in any situation and jump the line and get a title shot. I think that's true. I think I have that right. If not, I'm using that in my matchmaking in MMA. There's a few people in MMA, I don't care what the situation is, if they show up in a certain weight class, it's the Money in the Bank. I have John Jones at heavyweight and light heavyweight. Anytime he can jump them. I have George St. Pierre at middleweight and welterweight. I have Habib any weight class he wants, pretty much. If Habib wants to come out at middleweight, at welterweight, and honestly, I feel like I might have Henry Cejudo.
Oh, Henry Cejudo, absolutely. I mean, he has Money in the Bank in the real world. When he comes back, he might even be able to talk his way into an immediate title shot at 145.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's it. We were actually talking about. Well, we were talking because of Weili Zhang, but yeah. So it seems like everyone's on the same thing. People are throwing out other names, but it seems for the most part, yeah. It seems like the most part, everybody's in agreement that some people throw out, pull GSP out of retirement. Yeah, we all wish that would happen. The way Usman is fighting right now is, I don't know if George St. Pierre is coming out of retirement, but it would absolutely, if he had to came out of retirement and beat Kamaru Usman, then forget it. I would forget greatest welterweight. I would be jumping him to greatest fighter. Colby Covington, what are we doing to him? Now he's in that really tough situation where he's 0-2 against a champion.
And for that reason, he needs a little bit of a step back, not as a punishment. Like, if anything, he's earned a break and a paycheck that doesn't make him have to go through like a meat grinder. But you don't want him knocking off somebody else who's one win away from a title shot, because he's not one win away from a title shot anymore. So I'd say put him up against the winner of Michael Chiesa and Sean Brady.
Wow. Him and Sean Brady, that'd be fun. With that guillotine and Kobe going for takedowns.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, so would him and Michael Chiesa. I mean, the takedown would be there for him all day, but it would never be a safe place for him.
Sure. I'm not going to go that far down for some reasons. One, Kobe has a star quality to him. Whether you like him, whether you hate him, he makes people talk about him. So I don't want to go. I still think there's a little bit of a window to still use him because he has that huge personality. He has these back-to-back incredible fights where against a champion. So I'm putting him in either a fight night main event or a major UFC co-main event where there's a major fight on the top. And I'm putting him against Jorge Masvidal no matter what. Masvidal beats Edwards. Masvidal loses to Edwards. You have a built-in rivalry, former roommates, former best friends. Don't give me Covington versus Masvidal when Masvidal turns into Tyron Woodley.
I like that. Can I ask you a question about Colby Covington?
Sure.
because you mentioned he has a certain amount of notoriety and star power that it looks like they're going to stick to him. Do you think they will stick to him even if he kind of tones down the persona? Like, do you think people have just bought in at this point to him as a fighter?
I think he can tone it down a little bit, but he still needs to be very brash. So I don't think he has to start bringing in people's families. I don't think the Trump thing has to be, and this is not political, guys, so don't go down there. I'll say this, me and Ben are two different, we voted for two different people in the election. Okay, so this is not pro-Trump, not anti-Trump, not pro-Biden, anti-Biden, anything like that. I'm just saying, like, he's not the president anymore. That's kind of, you know, you want to bring, if he runs for president 3 years from now and you want to bring it back, okay, bring it back 3 years from now. Okay. But the brash, the street Judas, I used to beat you up in our house all the time for free. Like, yeah, bring all that stuff up. No more, I respect him, none of that stuff. So, yeah, like, I'm okay with that. So I would, yeah, you still, like, everybody's character, every stick runs out after a while. Like, sure. Tito Ortiz became this, like, buffoon of MMA. People forget there was a time when Tito Ortiz was the coolest guy in MMA. Like, I remember it. Like, he was team punishment, the dragging the body across while you're burying him. Like, everyone loved that stuff. Yep. You know, coming in with the flags and, you know, so, but every stick runs out. Kobe's run out. Connors has run out. The McNuggets with Tony Ferguson. Like, I think the Diaz brothers ran out on some people. Anyways, let me ask you one more question before we move on to after the main event, because we still have a lot to talk to. So Kamaru Usman is 15-0 in the UFC. He's virtually undefeated. He's got one loss in his career, but counting UFC, he's undefeated. You had $10,000. You had to go to Vegas. You had to bet $10,000 for one guy to beat Kamaru Usman. You can pick any fighter. This guy has to beat Kamaru Usman. Who are you picking?
Like right now?
Right now. Doesn't have to be who deserves an extra. Doesn't have to be Leon. You have one guy who could beat Kamaru Usman. Who's the biggest threat to Kamaru Usman right now?
You guys
not a year from now, not 2 years from now, not 5 years from now. I'm talking right now, next weekend. Who's the number one guy? Because I think we might be in agreement. Just by your facial expression, I think we might be in agreement.
Y'all are going to murder me for this, but I think it might be Khamzat Chimaev.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. It'd be tough to not take Colby because we've seen him be successful. We had it seems become so close, but it seems like everyone's saying the same thing. Oh, Corey threw out Khabib, which would make a lot of sense. Yeah, I was even thinking about Khabib because it's a different weight class. My boy's going with my bae is going with Vicente Luque. Me and Ben both love Vicente Luque. I can't see that. Maybe you could. Let me ask you this question. And I said I asked you one more question, but I'll ask you another one. Colby and Khamzat was kind of really getting into it recently. Do you think Colby, that might be his next fight?
It would be a way to put Chimaev over instantly. Like, if he can beat Colby, there's no problem putting him in a title shot.
He gets the title shot next, yeah.
I think, because keep in mind, I said I think Chimaev might be like the most dangerous guy to Usman, but I wouldn't favor him to beat Usman right now. Like, but Colby versus Chimaev would be an incredible fight. I mean,
my only thing is, I would want Colby to get one or two more, and that's gonna sound crazy that I'm saying I want Colby to get one or two more wins before fighting Khamzat. The only thing is because Colby's stock is down, and if he beat Khamzat, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Everyone get your and we're doing this strictly the honor system. If you already know what the awards are, don't say it. Ben has the awards. Do we have 2 performances and 1 fight night?
We have a fight and 4 performances. 6 people got awards.
Oh, okay. Now you screwed me up because I wasn't planning that. This is what I get for cheating. I didn't cheat, I shouldn't say, but I'm trying to be prepared because I usually just come with the cough. I prepared my guesses. Fight of the night And don't tell me, we'll let people throw their guesses out there. So give us your 4 performances, your fight of the night. Gaethje and Chandler is, even though the main event was pretty damn good, and so was Burgos and
Quarantillo was
sorry. So fight of the night, I'm going to go with Gaethje Chandler. Performances, I'm going to go with Pereira. I'm going to go with Ian Gary. I'm going to go with... Oh, God. Chris Barnett. Oh, God. And there's a couple other guys. I got one more spot. Imavov's an option. Marlon Vera's an option with that front kick. I could see them going with, the title winners with Usman or Namajunas. I'm going to go with Vera because of the front kick. So hold on. Let's see. I'm going to read out some other people's, and then we'll get who. Obviously, we're going strictly off of the honor system. So, oh my God, I forgot about Bobby Green. Bobby Green had a first round walk-off knockout. But it's too late. Diva goes fishing, goes Huggy Bear, Bobby Green, Chandler, Justin, and main event. Okay, so he gave almost like 2 fight of the nights, which I'm okay with. Let's see if anybody else has some guesses out there. Alan McDonald goes Imavov. Oh, Chris Curtis. That's another guy I forgot about. Curtis, Bobby Green, Chris Barnett, and he didn't give a fight of the night, but I'm assuming he's going with Gaethje and Chandler. Bass goes Chandler, Gaethje, Barnett, Vera, Gary. All right, I'm not gonna read all of them, but we got the chat's jumping today. But
yeah,
Ben,
all right,
let's
hear it. Let's give the
fight of the night.
Give the obvious one.
Obviously, Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. Your performances of the night: Marlon Chito Vera, Chris Huggy Bear Barnett,
yes,
Alex Poatan Pereira,
yes. Come on, give me one more.
King Bobby Green.
Oh, Ian Gary didn't get it.
Ian Gary didn't get one.
Wow, close. 3 out of 4, not bad. Anybody?
Had like 6 knockouts in a row. Like, you knew it was going to be tough to hand out these awards. I'm happy that they went to 4 Performance of the Night awards.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's tough to be on a 14 fight card versus a 10 fight card.
Yep.
Like, your odds just go down.
Oh, absolutely. One thing you got to think about the main event. And I know they get pay-per-view points. I know there's locker room bonuses and that, but like, to the public, Usman and Covington put on that fight, didn't get anything extra. Think about Shane Burgos and Billy Quarantillo, the fight they put on, they didn't get anything extra. Anyway, that's the kind of card people are throwing out. I think people are saying card of the year, all this stuff. Moving on. Co-main event. Rose Namajunas versus Weili Zhang. Rose Namajunas won a split decision. Before we actually talk about the fight, can I get in my soapbox for a second?
Soapbox it up, baby.
Bruce Buffer was on this crazy streak of numbered UFCs, this and that. I'm going to say something really controversial. Actually, I'm not going to say controversial. I don't want to go that far because it's been such a great night. I don't want to be negative. But Jesus Christ, Bruce Buffer, can you please read the 49-46 first? You kill the suspense when you read it last. Like, you have one job. Like, I understand you have to pronunciate people's names, but like, Bruce Buffer has a talent, like your God-given talent, the way he can project his voice, and obviously, I know there's more to it. He's got to perfect it. I understand there's more to the job than it seems. But like, that part's kind of easy. Like, read the 49-46 first. Yeah. Because when they read 48-47, I think it was 48-47 Rose, 48-47 Weili, or maybe the other way around. And then 49-46, it was, oh, okay. Well, it's Rose. Because she clearly won the last 2 rounds. Like, you kill the suspense. Read the 49-46 first. Anyways, carry on. Ben, who did you score the fight for?
I scored the fight for Rose Namajunas. I gave her rounds 1, 4, and 5.
All right. We have a debate. I scored it 48-47 for Weili Zhang. I gave her rounds 1, 2, and 3. I gave Rose 4 and 5.
There you go. Round 1 is going to be the swing round. And this is another fight where Twitter let me have it for scoring the first round for Namajunas. But honestly, I'm fine with that. Like, if you scored the first round for Zhang, then Zhang won the fight for you. I don't hate that at all. I wouldn't have thought this was a robbery if the splitter had gone the other way. Just
Yeah, so Austin, who we love, actually scored at 48-47 for Rose, but he gave her the last 3 rounds. He gave the first 2 rounds to Weili. Corey Gronfield had it 48-47 Rose, so right now I'm in the minority. Maybe said Weili won the first 2 rounds, so I'm assuming she scored it for... And I'm calling her a she because the profile picture is a girl, so I'm assuming it's a girl. Maybe it's his girlfriend, maybe it's his sister, maybe that's his mom, he loves her, I don't know. So I'm assuming that person scored it for Rose. For Weili. So me and Mabe is in the Weili camp. Devo is in the Rose camp. So the whole point is it was really close. So I got no debate with you. I said I was going to debate you, but I got no debate. It was a really, really close fight.
It was a very close fight. The lesson I learned from this fight is that both of these women need work from the bottom. Really in trouble, but she actually did manage to sweep and escape a few times. When Namajunas took Zhang down, that round was over.
Yeah, I agree.
Mbaye is saying that Rose didn't do a whole lot in the 5th. I mean, she was constantly landing short little strikes that they didn't do a ton of damage, but she was doing more damage than Zhang was, and she was constantly trying to advance position. Like, Zhang was constantly having to fight off guard pass attempts, or like she'd stand up and try to stack and pass. Like, I agree that like she wasn't doing a ton of damage, but if you at least are controlling the round and you're forcing the other fighter to constantly defend against what you're doing, or they're going to lose the fight imminently, like in the absence of truly dominant striking or grappling, that's what's going to decide the round.
Yeah, Bass throws out. He said he's happy the fight doesn't win a super close fight. I kind of got into it with a friend. He asked me. He said Rose won, and I said I scored it for Weili. He's like, how could you score that Weili when Rose clearly won the last 2 rounds? And I go, because Weili won the first 3. That's how you score a fight. He goes 3 out of 5. It's he's like, oh, but what about the he's a casual. He's saying, oh, what about the last 2 rounds? One of these things. And I was like, well, it's like a football game. You can score a whole bunch of points in the 3rd and 4th quarter, but if they scored more points in the 1st quarter and the 2nd quarter than you scored in the last, they win. Anyways, but back to this fight. So the reason why I scored the first 2 rounds for Weili is I thought between her leg kicks, her power shots, and her early wrestling, I thought that was enough for those first 3 rounds. But I'll say this. You said both girls really need to improve. Yeah, Rose was playing jiu-jitsu. She was trying to throw up submission attacks. She did throw up a couple up kicks, and then she tried to use some kind of moment to scramble. Weili was the opposite. Like, Rose kept her head down in her chest, kept Weili's back pinned against the canvas, and you were right. The round was over. This is what I said when the fight ended. The fight ended, and I said, I don't know who won this fight. It's going to be really close. I said Weili. I scored it for Weili, but I think Rose is going to win because of kind of what my friend's thinking was. I don't want to bash my friend. His thinking was, it's like, Rose has 2 rounds in the bag. So all she needs is one of these 3 close rounds. So I said she probably does have one of those 3. I gave all 3 for Weili. But I said this. If Weili wins, this sets up a trilogy fight. And if this is a trilogy fight, Rose is going to win that trilogy because you can see the avenue to beat Weili Zhang. Put her on her back, which has now become a really good avenue victory for a lot of people.
Question for you, and this isn't actual matchmaking. This is just like off the top of your dome. Do you think Carla Esparza could do that to Weili Zhang? Or is she just too small?
That's a tough one because she's a better pure wrestler than Rose Namajunas. But Rose Namajunas, to her fairness, is enough of a threat. Like the takedown in the 5th surprised Weili. It wasn't one like it was such a great shot. It was so in deep. She drove through. It was more of she didn't expect it, which is what you want to do with your takedowns, obviously. But she has the threat of her hands and her kicks that set up her takedowns.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, and this is going to be the super, super cop-out. Could she do it? Yes. Would she be able to do it? I'm going to say no. Does that make sense? Like, is that it? Like, am I predicting if they fought that she...
Right.
Yeah.
Like, If Tatiana Suarez was healthier and she and Weili had run into each other on the way up, I think Tatiana Suarez might have just 30-27'd her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that I've seen this gap in her game. But that's beside the point. She is a former champ, and she remains in the title picture because she gave... I mean, she's one of the three greatest strawweights in the history of the division right now. It's her, Joanna, and Rose.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Well, no, I want to talk about it real quick. It was really, really smart. Like, Rose Namajunas has shown how smart of a fighter she is. She showed it in really close fights that she had before. In the fifth round, she needs the fifth round, and she comes through. She did against Joanna Jędrzejczyk in their second battle. She did this one. Her wrestling, getting takedowns in wrestling late is such a smart strategy. So let's do this. Actually, I want to ask this question before we match make. And this will be real quick. I think we kind of already covered this in the preview. With the win, she now has 2 wins over Weili Zhang. She has 2 wins over Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She has a win over Jessica Andrade. Is Rose Namajunas the greatest strawweight ever? Has she? She doesn't have the title defenses that Joanna Jędrzejczyk does. Total. But is she the best now?
Yes.
Okay.
Because she has 2 head-to-head wins in their respective primes over the other 2 women who are even in the discussion.
Did you need Pat Barry to ask you who the best is?
I don't need Pat Barry to ask me anything.
No. It's so funny when you have Pat Barry talking to Rose and saying, like, who's the best? And she's saying in her like little sweet voice, I'm the best. I don't know. I love it. It's just something that, I don't know. It's just a nice moment. Like she's talked about mental toughness, struggling with it. That he understands that part of her. He understands that she needs somebody to remind her that she's the best. It's pretty. Like she's walking down the cage, kind of doing her Diego Sanchez. Instead of saying yes, she's saying I'm the best. Let's matchmake. So, because people are talking to the matchmakes, who's next? Because it's not cut and dry. It's not cut and dry who's the next for Rose Namajunas. There's 2 names that people are talking about in the chat. Some people are throwing out Marina Rodriguez. Some people are throwing out Carlos Esparza. Which camp, or is it a third one?
No. There, as far as I'm concerned, there's not a third camp.
Okay, so there's no third camp, but there is 2 camps. What camp are you in?
I am in the Esparza camp. Same as the main event that we just talked about. I thought Esparza should have been fighting Rose this time. Yes. So just like I thought Edwards should already have fought Usman. So that certainly doesn't change. It's not like Esparza went out and lost a fight while I wasn't looking. So, yeah, it's Carla Esparza.
Yeah,
she's held the title. She held it by beating Rose.
Yep.
And she's on a win streak.
Yep. And I am 100% with you. I am in the Carla Esparza. Is Carla Esparza as marketable of a champion as a Marina Rodriguez? Probably not. Like Marina's, she's, as we talked about, she's one of the big crackers in the division. Her and Rose throwing down in the pocket would be really, really fun entertainment. But I think there's a nice story, and sometimes you got to go with who deserves it more. And I think there's a story there. I think you could market Rose coming back for her revenge. And then she'd have to defend the belt against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, too, to get that revenge. But other than that, what do we do with Weili?
Well, I see 2 options. You either do Marina Rodriguez, and Adam Duffy in the chat suggested that because he's smart, because he's my son. I like Marina Rodriguez. For one, that's a banger of a fight. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to save Rodriguez either for an immediate title shot or to be on deck for Namajunas versus Esparza, then you give her the winner of Amanda Lemos and Nina Nunes, who fight in a couple weeks. Okay.
I'm going with a girl that I love. I'm doing Amanda Ribas.
See, I want Amanda Ribas and her great big 1-fight winning streak to win another fight first.
Okay. That's fair enough. Last question before we move on. Did the UFC win tonight with this outcome?
I mean, they would much rather Weili Zhang had won.
So you'd say no?
I would say, I mean, in this particular fight, they did not. But it's not like this was a super unpalatable outcome. That's the good thing about this division right now, is that they had good avenues forward no matter what happened. For those who are checking out the chat and have maybe heard us say the UFC is desperate for Chinese champions, desperate for Chinese contenders, just understand that the UFC is heavily invested in China right now. I mean, they built a UFC PI that's bigger than the one in Vegas, and they signed a China broadcasting deal, which is enormously expensive and will pay off much better if Chinese people are tuning in to see fighters whose names they can pronounce.
And it's also one of those superpowers in the world. I mean, they have a stronghold on America. They got a stronghold now with the Russian fighters. Why wouldn't you want to build up that base with... Well, I mean, you want to build up every country, obviously. But there's a couple of countries that stand out more, and China obviously is one of them. So... yeah, it doesn't feel like Rose in Madison Square Garden, the way she gets the pump, obviously with the American crowd, it seems like the UFC wins tonight. But when you add in the global appeal that Weili has, and if the UFC can get in China, which who knows how long that'll be, but if they can get back into China, her headlining a card in China after she won the title in China, I think that would be the best avenue to go. Seemed like people are not liking my Amanda Hebus pick, but... speaking of champions, Frankie Edgar took on Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera got a very light knockout, winning by TKO in the third with a front kick a la Lyoto Machida on Randy Couture, a la Vitor Belfort getting knocked out by Anderson Silva. I don't know what ones I'm forgetting, but talk about this fight for a second.
It is amazing to me how good Frankie Edgar still looks, all things considered.
Yep.
Halfway through this fight, I was like, you know what? He's lost his top gear has slipped just a little bit, but he still is a good boxer, and his hands are still pretty fast. His footwork is still pretty good. He is still a plus wrestler, but his cardio is not what it used to be. He used to have weaponized cardio, where he made his legacy by surviving unimaginable beatings early in fights and just coming back to win with heart and conditioning. That is what Frankie Edgar is. It's why we love him. He can't do that anymore. And the chin is starting to go as well. Like, he's not the guy anymore that took that shellacking from Gray Maynard twice.
No. Yeah, that's the things that stood out to me. Like this, I wrote down the skills are still there, but the attributes might not be. And the two things you said was cardio and chin. Another one I'll throw out there, and as crazy as this might sound, Frankie Edgar was a former lightweight champion of the world. He fought 2 weight classes higher than he is now and was the best. Dude, he might be undersized at bantamweight.
Dude, I was going to say this. I remember when he was on the small side for a lightweight, but not off the chart small. Like, I remember him fighting people like Tyson Griffin and Mark Bocek that were basically about his same size.
Yeah.
And now he's 2 weight classes down from there, and he's fighting a guy in Marlon Vera that he looks like he could just put Marlon Vera on like a suit of armor.
Yeah.
Like, Marlon Vera looked 25 pounds bigger than him. That's how far this sport has come in the 13, almost 14 years he's been in the UFC.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous.
And listen to me, I'm not saying Ben, but I'm assuming Ben is saying this. I am not calling Frankie Edgar to try to drop another weight class, because I think it'd be even worse. I think it'd be even worse for him, because he'd lose the speed advantage that he has, being less dehydrated. His chin would be going more. He'd have less cardio than flyweights. Like, I'm not suggesting that. Okay. Nope. I just think he's at that zone now where the skills are there, but eventually the body just gives away. And
he's 40, man.
Yeah,
he's 40 in a division that is not kind to the elderly.
Yeah, he got knocked out, but he also got rocked a bunch of times in that fight. Like, he wasn't, wobbled, but he was stopped in his tracks a couple times. The pressure by Vera, when I think because of the cardio, as you talked about, can't last, and being smaller and not being strong enough and losing a step, because he did lose his step. He's not as quick as he used to be, but he's always still pretty damn fast. Allowed Marlon Vera to pressure so much, and Frankie Edgar really struggled handling that pressure. And it still was a close fight deep into the third round. Vera got the biggest win. Obviously, he just beat a former champion, many time main eventer. Obviously, Frankie Edgar still has a little bit of springboard, not like what he used to be, but a little bit of springboard. What are we doing next with Marlon Vera? Because he's always been the guy kind of on the cusp. But you beat Frankie Edgar in one of the biggest fights of the fight cards of the year on the main card. You gotta get a jump up in competition, right?
That's the thing. It's a win that for a highlight reel knockout and just a brutal starching of a legend, it doesn't make me feel that much better about Marlon Vera. The things that I'm worried about Marlon Vera will remain the same. If you believe in Vera and you think now is Vera time, then you do Merab. If you say this guy needs some more seasoning, you give him the winner of Adrian Yanez and Davy Grant.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like both those matchups. One thing I'll say is, yeah, you said a lot of things like the problems I have with Marlon Vera are still there. One is his takedown defense. Like he stops some takedowns from Frank Edgar, but he still got taken down. But also just his inability to get out of first gear in the first round. Like he loses the first round in every fight, and when you're in 3-round matches, that's really hard. Like you have to be perfect. You got to win the second, third every time. Like you got to be perfect. So that's tough. I went another route with him. Like you're using him. You're kind of putting him in you put him in the range of the guys he's with, or maybe he's getting Merab over. I'm using him as a rebound because I don't really believe him. I believe he's a very good talent. I think he's going to be a tough test for prospects, guys who are trying to break in the top 15, but I don't see a title challenger. So I'm going to use him to build back up a guy that has lost recently.
Are you going to say Corey Sandhagen?
I'm going to go Corey Sandhagen.
I like that fight. I like that better than my ideas.
He's lost 2 in a row. I mean, they were both.
Ignore my ideas. Do what you say.
Yeah, they both were really good. Like even in losses, they were really good showings. But Corey Sandhagen's. So think about it. Corey Sandhagen has lost to TJ Dillashaw. He's lost to Pichion, and he's lost to Aljamain Sterling. He lost to the 3 top guys in the division. Now a lot of people say he beat TJ Dillashaw. Whatever. Regardless, but on his record, he's lost. I thought he did lose, but on his record, he lost. He still got we feel great about the guy.
That fight is hot fire too.
Yeah,
like Sandhagen versus Vera is.
Yeah, we feel great about the guy. We feel great about his talent, but he's still gonna win. Like he's gonna beat somebody. So give him Marlon Vera, co-main event, fight night. There you go, or pay-per-view opener, or something like that.
I like that.
We had 2 New York guys throwing down in New York City. One guy from New York City, one guy from the upper. I think like Buffalo area. Buffalo, okay, yeah, I thought so. Buffalo area. I wasn't sure if it was Buffalo or Ithaca or that area. Shane Burgos won a unanimous decision over Billy Quarantillo. Any other night, this fight is getting fight of the night. This fight was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I commented that I would have been more into this fight if they'd given me maybe 45 minutes, a cigarette, and an ice pack after the one right before it.
Dude, it's so funny you say that because that kind of was the feel. Like at one point it was the 3rd round, and they did something, and John Ann's like, wow, and the crowd comes alive. And like, why? What do you mean they comes alive? Why aren't they alive? This fight is incredible. It was 2 unbelievable guys standing in the pocket, throwing bombs into his face, and I loved every second of it. But yeah. It was bad timing. If it was the opening fight of the card, it would have had with less people in the arena. Opening fight of the card, it would have had bigger pump than it would be following up Gaethje and Chandler.
I agree, and they pulled that switcheroo in the bout order like a day ago because I was when we recorded the preview Wednesday night, I was going off the bout order on UFC.com, and it was still. Gaethje versus Chandler 3rd from the top. I think that would have been a great order to leave things, but hey, yeah.
So what I loved about this fight, I'm going to say this. Billy Quarantillo is not as skilled as Shane Burgos. He's not as polished as Shane Burgos. But his toughness, his output, he gave himself every opportunity. He gave himself the best possible chance of winning. And he was really close. This is the fight, and this very well could have happened in the main event, but this is the fight that what Billy Quarantillo did against Shane Burgos, that's what Colby Covington had to do. Not as technical, get in the pocket, throw shots, and hope you're the one standing. Just outwork him, beat him at pace. And he was having that success against Shane Burgos. The difference is Shane Burgos was still winning the inside battle. He was winning He was landing the hard shots. He was winning the title shots. He's a very intelligent striker, going down to the body, kicking the legs out, doing the stuff. Like everyone always wants to headhunt, knock it out, but a lot of times knockouts come from taking out legs, taking out bodies. That was the difference with Shane Burgos. So that very well could have been the case if Colby Covington fought like Billy Quarantillo, and Diva Goes Fishing says Billy Q reminds him of Colby Covington, and he's kind of agreeing with me. So there's a very good chance what happened to Billy Quarantillo happens to Colby Covington, but I still think that gives him the best route. What do you take of Shane Burgos? Because he's fought some of the top guys like a Josh Emmett and lost. He's been right on that door of taking, Josh Emmett is one I think of. Calvin Kattar's another one I think of. He's right there, but he's come short for the top 15 guys. Do you view him as a top 15 guy, or is he going to be this mid-card guy who's just really fun to watch?
I think we're kind of seeing his ceiling, really.
Okay.
Like who's he lost to in the UFC? Calvin Kattar, Josh Emmett, Edson Barboza.
3 stars.
That's his ceiling. Those guys are all kind of ranked, or at the time he fought them, ranked kind of 12 through 8 or so. That's probably his ceiling. And I feel bad saying this because I love the guy. How can you not love him? You look at his Sherdog Fight Finder profile, and it's him like smiling at you through a broken face.
Yeah.
Like the guy rules.
Yeah.
But for a guy that comes from a team that presents itself as a striking school, I mean, Team Tiger Schulman is just literally a dojo chain in New York that started cranking out some pretty good MMA fighters. They turn out some defensively porous guys, and he is right there with them. He's a blood and guts guy, and I think this is his ceiling right now. And when the end starts to come, it's going to come quickly.
That's right. Yeah, that always
I
happens.
He's going to be one of those guys that just turns old overnight and like gets like 3 bad knockouts in a row. And
I'm glad you said that, because there's a guy right before him, and he was definitely more defensively sound than Shane Burgos, but it's your point. You can only take so many shots in the chin, and that's what's happened to Frank Edgar, where the chin kind of falls. And that's going to fit really good with the 2 guys that fought right before him, where the same is going to happen. Like we were talking about Justin Gaethje and his heart and his credible moments. Like there's going to be a moment where suddenly he doesn't have a chin anymore, because you can't take the amount of damage that guys have taken and suddenly continued. But Burgos still, as you said, is still right there. So what are we doing with him next?
I want to give him to a guy that's kind of in that same territory, and I thought of 3 names, but the one I really want to match him with is Zubair Tukhugov. Like, talking about guys that have won in the last couple of weeks, you had Laron Murphy, you had Alex Caceres, but those guys are both on long winning streaks, whereas Burgos is on like a 1-fight winning streak, and so is Tukhugov. I like that one better.
Yeah, I like that. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'll agree with you. Because, like, I mean, right now a lot of the 145ers they're all kind of taken up. If you go in that range that he kind of fits in, he's going rematch with Josh Emmett, stuff like that. So, you don't want to really use him on like an Arnold Allen, who probably deserves a bigger name because of this winning streak. So, yeah, you talked me into Tukhugov. That works for me. All right. Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler.
I'm going to just jump right into the recency bias here. I'm not even talking about fight of the night, not even talking about fight of the year. I'm trying to think of a 3-round fight that I enjoyed more than this.
Swanson.
Like, that's how good it is.
Duho Choi, Swanson
Choi was.
I'm just throwing ones out there.
It was an absolutely insane fight, but this one had higher stakes. This one is probably a title eliminator.
Yeah, which matters.
And that always matters. You know.
Yeah, it definitely does hold more weight. Yeah, it's 2:16 in the morning, and that was after daylight saving time, so it really should be 3:16. So I don't know if my brain is working that well, but yeah, it was so incredible. What I love about this fight is I remember Craig Allen, and I know he was just trolling, and he's a great dude. He tweeted out, I can't remember, there was a fight, Melsick and Bruno Souza, where you had two great strikers, and Souza was moving, didn't want to really exchange with him, and Craig Allen tweeted out, what if Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler is like this fight? And it was like, dude, don't talk that exists. We want to see this incredible rock'em sock'em robot matchup, and that's what we got. So, why did Justin Gaethje win? Tell me, besides hitting the biggest shots, besides hurting Michael Chandler, more times. Like, why do you like what was he doing? To give him the best chance of winning.
I thought he just stayed within himself. Like a couple fights ago, he made the decision to stop being just a complete psychopath, and has a little bit more of a little bit more of a game plan. Like he's gone back to using his leg kicks, because when he first got to the UFC out of World Series of Fighting, including his last run there, everybody knew that he had some of the hardest leg kicks in the game, but he always underused them. And for me, it was very simple to understand why. Because leg kicks are an investment in attrition. And if you fight in a way that indicates that you don't believe the third round exists, then why would you even invest, Like he always fought as if he was going for a first round knockout, when his best tool is actually better equipped to help him get knockouts in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds. He threw more kicks. He threw a better variety of strikes than Chandler did. Like Chandler just threw a lot of his fastballs. Like he was the classier striker than Chandler. Chandler's gotten by on power and elite fast twitch athleticism for a long, long time.
Yeah, I felt like Justin Gaethje was, even though this is going to sound crazy because Justin Gaethje and he's looking to knock you up, he looked like he was trying to win the knockout that comes over time and not the knockout that comes in one strike. And that's what Chandler was trying to do he was loading up. So, yeah, you mentioned the calf kicks. The great thing about the calf kicks is, one, obviously it hurts. It forces your opponent to either just get their leg just damaged or switch stances, which always limits. That's not the stance they're more normal and more used to. But also, it zaps the power. If a guy's loading up, trying to knock you out one shot, and you're taking away his power, the way he's fighting you is limiting his chance of winning. But also, on top of that, he's losing the power in that one aspect that he's trying to knock you out. Shout out before we move on. Well, we're not going to move on from this fight, but I want to give a shout out to Alan McDonald with the best comment of the evening when I said it was 316. He said, "Did you say 316? Glass shatters." Obviously, that's talking about the Stone Cold Steve Austin entrance. So I love that. That was a really funny comment. I'll say this. So even though Chandler was trying to knock him out one shot, I do think he should have wrestled a little bit more. When you pick a guy up over your head and you're cutting him and somehow he turns into a funk roll and you get a scramble. That was
so good.
That changes you wanting to wrestle when you wasted all that energy and you don't even end up on top. He actually ends up behind you. But I think that was an avenue for him to victory. But one thing I do love about Michael Chandler is that he continued to target the body and landed a lot of good shots in the body. And I wonder, and this is not fair, and I like to point this out often, because a guy's fighting a 15-minute fight, not a 25-minute fight, so things change when you're fighting a 25-minute fight. But would those body punches had a bigger effect if it was a 5-round fight?
Yes.
But again,
body shots, even more than leg kicks, are an investment in attrition most of the time.
Yeah, because he went to the body a lot. Now, again, I'm going to point this out. Guys fight differently over 25 minutes. Would have Gaethje been as aggressive? Would have he, knowing that he has 25 minutes, would he have attacked the legs more, thinking, hey, I got 10 more minutes to take out his legs? It changes how people fight. So it's not fair, but I just want to point that out. One thing I will say, Michael Chandler is now 1-2 in the UFC. Okay. He's had as good of a who's list. I'll say this, though. When I watched Michael Chandler, even though he lost, he had an unbelievable performance. Still a great performance, Justin Gaethje. Like, he's giving himself fans. I just kept saying the same thing. People who think the top guys in Bellator can't at least hang in the UFC is been proven wrong time and time again. Michael Chandler has shown that he's a top 5-ish, top 10-ish lightweight, no doubt.
And we are only getting him when he has slipped a little bit from his absolute apex.
Yeah,
he is 36 years old,
yeah.
And he is a guy who has thrived on his chin and his athleticism. Like, I can't imagine if he had signed with the UFC, even back in 2018, the last time his contract came up at Bellator. Like, I think it's very likely that he would have had a UFC belt. I would love to have seen Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor for the 155-pound belt. I would have loved to see Chandler versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Like,
Yeah.
we missed out on some great stuff.
Yeah,
While
absolutely.
he was out there, like, getting stanky legged by Brent Primus.
Yeah. So let's do this. Before I ask Ben what he's doing, I want to throw out the chat. The lead up of last week, or I shouldn't say the lead up, sorry, I'm getting a little tired. The conclusion of last week was Islam Makhachev was so amazing. He took down Dan Hooker. He commorted him real quick. What a performance. He's getting the next title shot. We pumped the brakes a little bit, but, we weren't totally against it. But the lead up, like Gaethje and Chandler squashed that narrative. Basically, was saying all week, this is the title eliminator. The winner of this is getting a title shot. Ben, you're the supreme ruler of the UFC. Is Justin Gaethje fighting for the title next, regardless of who wins between Dustin Poirier and Charles Oliveira?
I don't see any other. I can't justify it.
Okay.
I mean, it would be a rematch in the case of the Poirier fight, but it's not like it was a rematch of a blowout.
And it was a while ago, too.
Yeah, and it was a while ago. I think it's the only justifiable thing. I mean, Gaethje's looked amazing. He's beaten top 5 guys time in and time out. He's only lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying no matter what, Justin Gaethje should get the title?
Yes.
Okay. Throw it on the chat. You guys tell me who should fight the title again. So, or you could say if you agree with Ben, you can say you agree with me, or you could say neither. So Ben is saying Justin Gaethje's on the title. I'm still doing what I said last week. My thing last week was Gaethje had an unbelievable performance, but so did Islam Makhachev. Scott, he was going to ride against me. Scott McCrae is saying we will ride if not. That's a funny comment. So please don't ride on me. I'm not giving Justin. Well, I am giving Justin Gaethje's next fight a title shot, but I'm not saying he is getting the next title shot. If that makes sense. If Dustin Poirier beats Charles Oliveira, I am giving Islam Makhachev the title shot simply because Justin Gaethje has fought Dustin Poirier again. To Ben's credit, I understand it was a very close fight. It was an extremely exciting fight because that's all the fights Justin Gaethje has, and it was a while ago. But I still want to see new blood. If Charles Oliveira wins, then I'm giving Justin Gaethje the title shot because I agree with you, Ben. A win over Michael Chandler is still a win better than Dan Hooker.
Yep.
So that's what I'm doing. But as far as Justin Gaethje, if it's Poirier, I'm telling Gaethje to sit out. You're still getting the next title shot. You don't have to fight somebody else. You're taking on the winner of that one.
That works for me.
Sorry.
Yep, understood.
While you're doing that, I'm banning some spammer from our chat.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so that's what we have with Justin Gaethje. People putting out there seem like everybody is saying the same for you that Justin Gaethje probably should get the next title shot. So Ben is the better matchmaker than I am tonight. What do you do with Chandler?
You know what? Chandler needs a little bit of a step back. Like, just like you were kind of saying. Yeah, he needs a little bit of a step back, but not much of one. And so, like, yeah, give him some time to recuperate. His face is all busted up. He's probably going to get 6 months from the commission. You said
he needs a step back. So are you sending him back to Bellator? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm giving him the winner of Brad Riddell and Rafael Fiziev.
Okay. Wow. I'm going to throw my name out there. And I'm going to
argue. You, Keith Shillan, he's going to kick your ass.
No. Yeah, that was okay. Yeah. Hey, only one of us is undefeated.
Hey, that's true.
I'm going to throw the name that I had written down, not my name. The name I had written down. I'm going to say that my name carries more prestige. My name is the bigger name. My name is the name that I think Michael Chandler would be more interested in. But I actually think my name is a step down from who you're saying, if that makes sense. Not in the rankings, not in the prestige, but I'm giving him RDA.
Hey, RDA is probably because he's a former champ, so he's always going to have a quicker path back to a title. So that's not like a lose-lose for Chandler either. Mm-hmm. You know, if he beats a guy that, you know, is that close to a title shot himself, I don't hate that.
Fight night main event.
Fight night main event for sure. RDA is another guy who is on the back end of his career in terms of mileage and time. So, it's go time for both those guys. I don't hate that.
So you guys have it. That's the main card. Let's move on to the prelims. We'll try to do it a little bit faster than we did the main card. So Andre Michailidis, he ended up losing to some kickboxer. I don't know if you knew that this kickboxer was pretty good at kickboxing. His name is Alex Pereira. I heard a rumor that he might have beat some middleweight champion. I don't know if it.
Yeah, he beat some skinny Nigerian guy.
So he did. It wasn't Rich Franklin. It wasn't that.
No,
it wasn't. Wasn't Chris Weidman. Oh, it's current champion Israel Adesanya. I don't know if they mentioned that he knocked out Israel Adesanya in kickboxing.
They didn't lay it on as thick as I thought they were going to.
No, I know. It was just like the walkout. That was it. I just we've heard it all week. But Alex Pereira beat Andres Michailidis by second round KO with a switch kick knockout, flying knee knockout. It was a switch. I'm going to say this right. He threw a flying knee. It was a switch knee. I don't want to say switch kick. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it's a switch knee.
Yeah. He started throwing one knee, switched it midair. While he was doing it, he grabs the back of the head and pulls it in like you see a lot of Muay Thai strikers do. It's such a thing of beauty. This is what he can do. He got taken down. He fought, to his credit, he fought his way out. Didn't get submitted. He kept fighting to get back to his feet. And then he got back to his feet, and he had one of the most incredible knockouts of the year. Is there anything else to say about this?
I have just a quick thing.
Sure.
This was even better than him just going out and shellacking Michailidis. Because I said on the preview, Michailidis is capable of being a grinder, but he prefers to brawl. And if he does that with Pereira, he's going to get knocked out in the first half of the first round, bring the smelling salts. I was wrong by a whole round, but that's actually good because Pereira he beat Michailidis when Michailidis was fighting to his best advantage. Mm-hmm. And he was calm in all those fence kind of clinch and grinding situations. He made Michailidis wear himself out first. Like he made him do more work, which, dude, that's rare for a kickboxer.
Yep.
Where he's like, I'm calm. I don't need to panic. I don't need to hold my breath and turn purple. Just win the head position battle, get my underhook, shuck him off. And Michailidis was sucking wind on the stool. I was like, oh, this guy's dead now.
Yeah, so somehow I feel better about him too because we've seen him taken down. We've seen him have to work his way back up. We've seen what happens if someone wrestles him. Well, we saw it. Now, I'm not saying he can handle Damian Maia in the ground or anything crazy like that, but the point is he showed that he's somewhat competent.
Yes. So
this is what he can do. Let me ask you this question. This is now not Ben's supreme ruler, but simply Ben guessing what the UFC could do. How many more wins does he have to get before he faces Israel Adesanya?
I think he needs to win his first 3 fights in the UFC.
So he's got 2 more.
He's already won 1. He's got 2 more, and the UFC is going to curate them very carefully to get him guys that bring him into the plausible ranked range without throwing him to, Derek Brunson or Jack Hermanson, just to mention the people that they fed Shabazian to.
So do you feel like it's almost a Darren Till type title shot where it was like he fought Tyron Woodley, he probably wasn't the top contender, we got him in the position, he's a marketable guy at that time. Conor McGregor's the star of the world, let's get another European. You think it's kind of one of those things? Now, obviously he has a little bit more of a story with the champion, but kind of that where he fights a borderline ranked guy next fight, and the fight after that is a ranked guy. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's a ranked guy that's probably going to strike with him.
Give me a guy. Give me his next opponent.
I mean, they could just slap him together with Nasruddin Imavov, who won earlier tonight. But I think it would be great to give him the winner of Jordan Wright and Bruno Silva. Whichever guy wins that, it's going to strike with him, and he's going to be the better striker.
Wow, especially Bruno Silva. That'd be. I didn't write. I'm trying to think why I didn't write down a name. Like I have his name and I have like my little symbol where I'm going to give him a guy, and then I didn't write down. So I'm going to let you talk for a second while I delay. I'm going to give you a name. But I like your choices.
Yeah. Wright and Silva's what I picked. They could do Imavov. I know we haven't made Imavov yet because we haven't gotten to his fight.
Yep.
But I'm going to suggest putting him up against the winner of Brad Tavares and Brendan Allen. I wouldn't give that guy to Pereira because whichever guy that is would be more than willing to drag Pereira to the ground and just choke him out.
All right, so I'll throw some names at people. Alan McDonald threw out Sean Strickland. Man, that's... Wow. No,
Nasty.
Yeah. Somebody else, let's see. Devo is not believing in the Alex Pereira hype. He's saying anybody with actual wrestling credentials and a gas tank beats him. That obviously is the narrative of any kickboxer.
And you're right, Dev. Like that's right, which is why
the
UFC
is
going to have to kind of slalom him around.
Well, let's say this. I will say this. I will say I'm going to assume when Devo goes fishing that is true. Because generally speaking, when you have a high-level kickboxer, striker, if you got a wrestler with a cardio, they win. I mean, perfect example is PFL, what happened with Clarissa Shield. Now, obviously, I know she's a boxer, not a kickboxer, but she's the best boxer, female boxer in the world. And she got taken out and she lost. So, generally, I agree with him. But let me remind you, the current middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya, and I know it's not fair, they're different people. They did take different paths. Israel Adesanya fought a lot more regional fights than Alex Pereira. Mm-hmm. But let's remind you, Alex Pereira knocked Israel Adesanya out. He's a better kickboxer. And let's not forget that at this time in Israel Adesanya's career, where he had one fight in the UFC, how many people were saying the same thing about Israel Adesanya? People were saying, oh, when he faces a wrestler, he's going to lose. Yep. It was supposed to be Derek Brunson. When he fought Derek Brunson, oh, this is it. He's going to lose. Conor McGregor got the same thing. When he faces fill-in-the-blank wrestler, guy with cardio, whatever, he's going to lose. So, generally, I agree with Devo. If you get a good wrestler, they're probably going to take him down and hold him down. But it ain't a sure thing. It's not a sure thing with the guys this kind of striking. The name that I came up with is Julian Marquez. He's not this hulking wrestler, but he can wrestle. He's well-rounded enough. He's a tough test. It'd be a nice name on his record. So Julian Marquez is the guy I would do. But I like your idea.
A couple people in the chat said Uriah Hall. I could see kind of like Uriah Hall and Kevin Holland being the type of guys that they use, at least in the fight after this one.
Yep.
As like a ranked guy to justify the title shot.
Well, I can't do Kevin Holland. You'll find out in a little bit.
Oh, boy.
Before that, Ali Quinta versus Bobby Green. I have nothing to say about this fight other than Ali Quinta was quicker. Bobby Green was quicker. Ali Quinta is pretty much done.
Yep.
Not saying he's done like he can't win fights in the UFC, but the ceiling of Ali Quinta is long gone. The top 10 guy, the guy that beats Kevin Lee, that guy's gone.
That's gone. The Kevin Lee fight was the high watermark of his career in terms of accomplishment. He looked great. Mm-hmm. But coming back from 2 years off to fight a guy, like you can't get back into the rhythm to fight a guy like Bobby Green. Yeah. I wasn't expecting the finish, but man, if all you've got to offer Bobby Green is being a worse boxer and coming right at him, he's going to hurt you.
I think it was you that said that if this fight was in Las Vegas or somewhere else, he's not fighting.
I don't know if that was me, but I'm happy to take credit for it.
All right, I want to take credit for it. Like if this card was in Chicago, if this card is somewhere not near his hometown, he might not be even fighting this card.
Oh. Austin points out that Bobby Green, not only is he off the scream at the TV fighters like team, but he's flipped the script because now he's screaming at me through my TV.
That's right. He's calling you out, Ben.
Seriously, like what a Cinderella story. Forget Glover Teixeira. Bobby Green is the he's the feel good story of the year.
Yeah, and Kyle said it right at best. He said he looked real flat. I agree. He looked flat. He seemed like he was a step behind Bobby Green, and this is what a guy that doesn't seem interested in the sport anymore. I think he's interested in talking about the sport on a podcast. I don't think he's interested in putting the extra work, working hard, torturing your body for 8 weeks. It is what it is. The time of I quit to being a ranked lightweight and being in the ranked conversation is long gone. And it's nice to see Bobby Green, who's had so many split decisions and close fights, get a sensational knockout and a huge card. So we just talked about nice moments. Is there a nicer moment if you're a fan of regional MMA, you watch a lot of regional MMA, you've seen Chris Curtis. He fights everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I was explaining to my friends his story about how he basically willing to fight on a day's notice, willing to fight weigh in the same morning. The whole story. I did the story about Phil Hawes, and Phil Hawes was a killer. There's a terrible style of this matchup. Phil Hawes is picking Chris Curtis apart until suddenly he wasn't. I don't think Chris Curtis is going to win a lot of fights in the UFC. I'm glad he got to call himself a UFC veteran. He gets to do that for the rest of his life. But I'm even more pleased, and this is not a knock on Phil Hawes or anything like that, but I'm even more pleased for that he had this moment. And his reaction was, it didn't seem like a fake, I'm super happy. It seemed like a genuine, I'm so happy because this is a lifetime goal. Thank you for giving me this moment.
What more can you say? It felt great. And again, yeah, I've seen Chris Curtis weigh in fully clothed so he could fight somebody way too big for him. I've seen Chris
He's
Curtis
a real
fight
fighter. He's not scared of anything. He's a real dude. He's a real fighter.
He stepped up to fight Phil Hawes on, do you know how much you have to pay me to fight Phil Hawes?
Oh,
Good
yeah.
grief.
Not enough.
Yeah.
You have to pay my house off or something like that.
Yeah. But if Chris Curtis drops back down to welterweight, and he might even just rack up a couple more wins. There's dudes down there for the taking.
I'm glad we're going to talk about Phil Hawes. I'm glad that Devo just mentioned this in the comments. He talked about Phil Hawes' durability, talking about his chin. Phil Hawes has all the talent. I mean, you saw his striking on there. We've seen his wrestling. You've seen the explosion. But I think about Chris Curtis put him out. It was one left hook that got the ball rolling. Right before that, though, was a nice body shot that I think that body shot set up the left hook. Because when I go to your body, next time I move, you got to drop, and you get caught with a good liver shot. Your next move is going to drop your hands. And I think that's probably why the left hand came over the top and connected. A lot of people don't see that hook right before it. But Phil has all the talent, but we've seen him losing. We've seen him losing to guys. I'm really worried about his chin. We've seen him get hurt by Imhoff. We saw him get hurt by Kyle Dawkins and stuff.
And you talk a lot about people not re-chambering after they throw. Like, Hawes has a problem bringing that right hand back to the chamber after he throws one.
Yeah.
Like, it goes out and it comes back down.
Yeah. Which is so crazy considering how fast he is.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, Edmund Shabazian versus Nasruddin Imhoff. Talk to me about this fight for a second, because this was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, but in its way, it was an even worse look for Shabazian than his back-to-back losses to Derek Brunson and Jack Hermanson were. Because in those fights, one, he was fighting top 5 guys, and two, he put it on him for at least most of the first round before he hit his infamous cardio wall. Here, he tried to fight in a little more of a measured manner, and it just led to him losing the first round, too. I thought Imhoff looked really good. I believe we both picked Imhoff to win this one. But I didn't pick him to get the finish. I think I literally said on the preview, this is the most obvious fight in the world. Give me Imhoff by losing the first round and winning the second and third. That was not the case. Imhoff won most of this fight, and Shabazian has durability and physical strength problems at 185.
Yep, and he tires himself out with his wrestling. He tries wrestling, he tries grappling, and instead he gets himself tired. We had some really fun scrambles, though. Guys jumping on guillotines and all kinds of stuff. Until Nasruddin got the top position, moved to the crucifix, landed some mean shots from on top. Really good showing. He's well-rounded. He's young. He's well-rounded. He looks good. Devo's fishing. He throws out Hawes versus Shabazian for the next fight. I don't want to do that. I want them both to get a real softball. I want them both to get back, especially Edmund Shabazian. He's lost 3 fights in a row. Imhoff, though, what do we do with him? Because he's a guy that seemed like a lot of people heading into this liked him to beat Edmund Shabazian. It seemed like he was getting a little bit of attention himself.
He's beaten now Ian Heinisch and Edmund Shabazian in back-to-back fights. And those are both guys that kind of made it into the top 15 before they started to flag a little bit. They're both really legit wins. Imhoff is that rarest of breeds. He's a guy that's actually kind of sneaking onto the contender radar quietly. It's like the UFC is so desperate to find its next star. It's kind of rare that someone can come in and just win a couple fights by finish. Mm-hmm. and not have it be noticed, but it's going to get noticed. One, he's a MMA factory guy, so you're going to see Francis Ngannou's coach in his corner every time, translating for him. That association is going to help him. Yeah, good stuff. I'm happy to have him here.
Yeah, so with that division being so wide open, it's so shallow, they're looking for contenders. I'm trying to give him a faster strike than I normally would. I'm putting him against Kevin Holland. That's why I said I couldn't mention Kevin Holland. I think that makes,
Yeah, I mean, I went lower. I went the Brad Tavares, Brandon Allen winner.
I'm okay with that, too.
On the high end, Dev Goes Fishing is giving him Jack Hermanson. You're kind of in the middle there.
Yeah.
I like the Goldilocks approach, actually.
Yeah, I was too. He's giving him Jack Hermanson, and I'm so tired. I was at softball extremely early this morning. I read that real quick, and I thought Ed Herman for some reason. I read Ed Herman. But there's another question someone asked, is Edmund Shabazian? I don't think so. I think he's really young, so I'm not, throwing in the towel on him yet. But he has a major hole that needs to be fixed. But he's young enough that he can fix it. Before that, speaking of young, how about a 23-year-old? Ian Gary versus Jordan Williams. Jordan Williams was putting it on Ian Gary until he wasn't. Until he was face planted.
There you go. I like this fight for Gary the same way I like Pereira's fight against Michailidis better than if he just come out and starts Jordan Williams in 60 seconds. Because he got a little taste of, yeah, you're a super prospect, and there's a reason why all of Western Europe is high on your potential.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like merging into freeway traffic for the first time. These people move faster than you're expecting.
Yeah.
Because
a
guy that's on the verge of being cut from the UFC, marked you up for the first 2 minutes of this fight.
That's right. So he definitely has star potential. He's long, lengthy. He's got power. We talk about his skills, but a fade back right hand. And now, obviously, there was another Irishman who was infamous for fade back punches. Now, obviously, his was the left side because he was left-handed. But you go in the UFC, you're an Irishman, you're brash, and then you do Conor McGregor's move to get the walk-off knockout. That was sensational. He won the night with his antics on the mic. He really, I shouldn't say he won the night, but he won the moment. He had a moment that had star quality. When you're a young, brash, former Cage Warriors champion from that region of the world, you automatically get compared to Conor McGregor. I like that he embraces it.
Yeah.
And he uses
to the point that he openly admits that he's emulating his path. He's like,
yeah.
And you've probably seen the picture. It went up on Twitter, went up on all the sites of him at age 12,
cool.
standing next to Conor McGregor. Yeah.
That's a nice story. You see it and you're like, oh, that's so nice. He made it.
Dude, in terms of winning the night, his post-fight interview, it's kind of like Burgos versus Quarantillo, considering who he had to go right after.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was really good. I feel better about him than Paddy Pimblett. Now, Paddy Pimblett's further on in his career. He's a little more polished. But I feel much higher on Ian Gary than Paddy Pimblett. Fair?
Same.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, due to time restraints, I'm not going to ask people what they think of Ian Gary, but he seems like a guy that, anytime you're making into people making herpes jokes. Oh, that's you. Yeah, there was something going on in his face. I don't know what was going on. But he's a young kid. It could have just been a really big pimple or that he popped or something. I don't know. But I don't know. It looked really bad. But he's got star potential. And anytime you're going to your UFC week and you get in-studio interview with Errol Houani, you have that potential. All right. Before that, let's get to the People's Main Event. Before we talk about the People's Main Event, I want to ask you one question, Ben. Ben, do you like me like Chris Barnett likes John Vellante?
I would say, yeah,
you have never pumped me like Chris Barnett pumped up John Vellante after just knocking him out.
He's an effusive guy. What a moment, what a fight, what a finish, what a promo, what a way to keep the energy in the building positive after knocking out their favorite son. Like Long Island's own John Vellante gets absolutely starched by a wheel kick from a 5'9" man who
when I
looks
think
like my goodness. But
when I think of John Vellante, I'm going to think of his entire career could get summed up by looking like John Vellante in a fat suit because he was about 50 pounds heavier. It looked like one of those movies where like Nutty Professor Eddie Murphy's putting on this suit because it was just like, what the hell? He had this huge bear belt. This fight looked like, I tweeted this out, it looked like two drunk dads fighting at a pool party. Like just, but then it ended spectacular in this spinning wheel kick that knocked John Vellante out, but it kind of like grazed his head, didn't even connect that clean. And then he goes to go for a finish, but instead of like landing hammerfish, he falls on top of his back and just, yeah. That said, though, I loved every second of it. And when I think of John Vellante's career, I'm just thinking about him losing to a guy a foot shorter than him, and then he doesn't even get his retire in his hometown. He gets knocked out in his hometown by a guy half his size. He was not a UFC talent. He doesn't even get his retirement speech. The guy steals his retirement speech from him. He doesn't even get to say a word and then walks off. It's pretty much how I'm going to remember John Vellante.
He did the Kung Fu Panda flip.
Yeah. Chris Barnett's not going to win a lot of fights in UFC, but hell, it's going to be fun until he's eventually booted out.
There's nothing else to say about that fight.
Okay. Moving on. Justin Jacoby versus John Allen. They say Justin Jacoby might have broke John Allen's teeth. He was saying that. I'll let you jump in here because to me there's not that much to say. What do you want to say about this one?
Jacoby looked like a guy who took the fight on really short notice. He looked like a better fighter than Allen, who just was a little out of rhythm and got tired a little too quickly. Good to get out with the win.
Yeah. Just to me, Allen gave Jacoby the fight he wanted. He needed to close the distance and try to grapple, and he didn't. And just Jacoby just, if you're going to get a guy at short notice, you got to press the action, try to see how tired it is. And he just let Jacoby jab him. I loved, and we'll move on. I don't know if you were catching this during the fight. He kept doing this. He kept like he's moving around and he just throw one of these out. And a friend of mine was like, "Why is he doing that?" This where you throw your hand away from your body for no reason. Mm-hmm. It's like a distraction, and it causes the opponent to look over at that hand. And eventually, when you do that, you go like this. You look over that hand, and they look that way. And then you throw the other hand that's locked in, and it knocks. That's what he was doing with all that hand motion, basically making the opponent adjust their eyes over to that spot, which just comes naturally. So that's what he was doing. Justin Jacoby, another nice win. He continues this great return to the UFC. All right, Melsik Bagdasaryan versus Bruno Souza. To me, this was just a terrible stylistic matchup for Bruno Souza. Bruno moved way too much. You can't win just by moving. You got to have some offense.
His coach literally said to him between rounds, "I need you to stop running so much and start scoring."
Yeah, he just gave him
brutal.
He just gave Melsik the fight.
He completely did. And again, nobody who gets into the cage is quote scared. Nobody is chicken.
No, of course not.
But he tasted the power and he didn't like it.
Yeah.
The thing is, he won the third round, but even then, I was screaming at my TV because I was like, you know you're not going to knock him out, and you know that winning this round is not going to win you the fight. Mm. Like, what are you doing? Like, you might as well just throw in the towel if you're not even really going to try to win this fight.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree with you. He's not scared, but what they're doing, they're biding time to try to find a different strategy, and he couldn't find it. He couldn't find another avenue for victory, and it is what it is. Before that, Ode Osman versus CJ Vergara. I have way more notes on this fight than I should have. Because
for the first fight, you weren't tired yet.
Yeah, you're motivated. You're writing things down. Then you're like, "Hey, I'm not gonna talk all this moment at this time of night." But to me, early going on, Ode looked really good. He had a speed advantage. I also thought that Vergara was not fighting the fight he needed to, and we saw the fight he needed to in the third round where he kind of turned up the volume, and Ode was unable to really get his strikes off and tired him down. I wonder if so Ode won the unanimous decision. He won the first 2 rounds, lost the third. I wonder if Vergara put the pressure on earlier, if he would have been able to find a stoppage on Ode.
That's a good question. I kind of wonder that because I didn't think he fought to his best advantage.
No, I don't think so either.
And frankly, I don't give him. I give him no extra credit for winning the last round. If you miss weight, and you win the last round by pushing a pace, that doesn't count, dude. Like,
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that was one of my questions. Like, would he have been able to do this if he cut the last 1.4 pounds? And mind you, as I mentioned on the broadcast, they did a really good job. They said like it's not just 1.4 pounds. This is flyweight. They have the least amount of weight, and it's not like people say, "Oh, it's 1 pound." Yeah, if I don't know how fat I am right now, but I could easily jump up right now. I'm not sucking my body, and I can go run around my house for a half hour and lose 1.4 pound. But lose 20 pounds and then try to get that 1.4 pound. It's much different. It's right. Yeah. Another thing, just what stood out to me about Ode was just the variety of strikes. He was attacking all times, high, low, kicks, knees, everything, while Vergara was just trying to box. But another reason why I think Vergara was able to tire him down in the third was his ability. He was getting in the clinch and then he was throwing knees to the body, and I think that made a big difference. I think that's another reason why it slowed down Ode. But I'm glad that the guy that didn't miss weight got the win.
Agreed.
All right, let's do the fun stuff, and then we'll get out of here. We got the Bulls and the Bears. We got the Cutlass, and we got the grade, and then the listener of the evening. I got one name for the cut list.
I've got 2 names for the cut list, even if one of them isn't really realistic.
All right, let's see which name is being saved. So give me your first name.
My plausible one
okay,
is John Vellante.
That's who I had. Looks like he's cutting himself, so that's one I had. So who is getting saved?
Ally Quinta.
Oh, you know what? I apologize. Ally Quinta should be on my cut list. So, yes, bad day for Serra-Longo MMA. So,
or I guess Vellante left Serra-Longo and he went to Belmore Kickboxing.
Yeah. I don't know what the connections are, but yeah. Yep, you're right. I knew that. But, all right, fine. Bad day for Long Islanders.
Yep. Just an extra little screw you to New York. Like, we're going to come to your town and your local fighters are all going to lose. And yeah.
So let's keep it going negative. Let's do the Bulls and the Bears and the Cutlass. I'll go first if you don't mind.
Please.
All right. So if you're not familiar with the Bulls and the Bears is a stock market reference when things are going good. It's a bull market when things are going bad. It's a bear market or bear stock. We do it hockey style, 3-2-1, with number 1 being the best or worst of the night. So the Bears would be the worst. My number 3, Edmund Shabazian. Edmund Shabazian's stack has fallen. This is a guy that was headlining UFC. Now he's lost 3 in a row. He's losing to a guy that he was an underdog, but not many people know Nazanin Imavov. So losing to Jack Hermanson in main events and who else? Derek Brunson, not looking too bad, but now seems a long ways away from main events.
Yep.
My number 2, Chinese MMA. And what I mean by that, I thought Weili Zhang won, but 2 weeks in a row, the biggest male star in the UFC, Chinese male star in the UFC, lost last week. Got absolutely smoked by Khamzat Chimaev. Obviously, I'm talking about Jing Li Long. Help me out. Jing Li. What am I saying?
Jingliang Li.
Jingliang Li. Jeez. Sorry, guys. And then Weili Zhang lost tonight. So China MMA, both their big stars are on a losing streak. Not a losing streak. Lee's not a losing streak, but the number 1 loser tonight, it's got to be Colby Covington. Well, it wasn't a terrible performance. He's 0-2 against the champion. He's talked a big game, and he hasn't been able to back it up. So Colby Covington's stock has fallen the most. So who are your Bears?
You know what? I agree with all 3 of yours. So rather than coming up with more of my own, all I'll throw in is local fighters. Ally Quinta literally only fought because this card was in New York. John Vellante said going into it, this is my retirement fight. Both of them got embarrassed badly. So, tough night for the home guys.
Yeah, luckily for Shane Burgos, he came through for them. But he also fought like a somewhat New York guy. Not New York City, but New York State. All right, we'll do the Bulls. And these are guys who had a good night. Their stock is going up. Ben, give me your Bulls.
Oh, Bulls. Bobby Green gets his first finish in his last 10 fights. So he's a guy who's gone from losing a lot of split decisions he shouldn't have lost, but no one to blame but himself because he could have won them more definitively, to getting a highlight reel knockout and a bonus for the first time in a long time. Good for him, and got a chance to cut one of his kind of uniquely spacey and positive promos on the mic. Number 2, Alex Pereira. Again, this guy's got the golden ticket. He's just got to win 3 fights in a row, and he can say he fought for a UFC title. Got the job done, and in a way that actually answered a few legitimate questions. Number 1, there is no answer but Trevor fucking Whitman.
That's right.
The entire post-fight presser should have just been him walking up and laying his rod across the podium, saying, "Any questions?
3-0.
No? Good night."
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Gaethje, Rose Namajunas, Kamaru Usman all win. This guy has like 5 fighters on his roster, and 2 of them are champs, and 1 is on the brink of being a champ.
And if not,
ridiculous what he's doing out there.
And if that guy doesn't get a title shot, we riot.
We riot.
Just for the record, I am not suggesting we riot. That was just a joke. I am not. Me and Ben are not publicly suggesting violence. So my Bulls, I had Trevor Whitman number 1, so I'm not going to put him on the list. Again, you're absolutely right. No brainer. So I will go with Ian Gary. It wasn't flawless, but you're an Irish MMA fighter who it's very similar to Paddy Pimblett, and I know Paddy's not Irish, but where you start from Cage Warriors and you get a spectacular finish. His was a knockoff. He's extremely young. His stock has gone through. He went from a guy that not many people knew about a couple weeks ago to a lot of people know who he is now, and it will continue to grow in popularity. My number 2, Glory Kickboxing. Glory Kickboxing had 2 veterans on this card. They both end up winning. I'm talking about Alex Pereira, who you mentioned on your Bulls, and Dustin Jacoby. So 2 people who have fought for Glory Kickboxing, picked up wins in the UFC. But my number 1, really my number 2, because Trevor Whitman's number 1. But my number 1, I'm going another team, and I'm going local. I'm going Southern New England. I'm talking about the 2 Southern New Englanders who won in back-to-back week. Of course, I'm talking about, I don't care what you say, they were born and raised in Southern New England, even though they represent the Brazilian flag, and somehow their body was delivered by their mother in another country. But they're Southern New Englanders. Glover Teixeira, Alex Pereira. That team, Teixeira MMA, had a great week, 7-day period, with obviously the face of the team, Glover Teixeira, winning the light heavyweight title, and then Alex Pereira getting a flying knee, switch knee knockout. He's training on that team. So that team is rising. So there are your Bulls. So, Ben, there you have it. We did all the fun stuff. Give me your grade for the card.
A+. Wow. It's on the short list for card of the year. I mean, we had what might be a lock already for fight of the year. And several other outstanding fights. When the fight that I said this is going to be the worst fight on the card turns out amazingly entertaining. Yeah. Like I have to eat some crow and be like, okay, yeah, this card's an A+.
Yeah, just thinking about, we had the main event was spectacular. The co-main event wasn't spectacular, but it came down to the last round. It was highly debated. We had like you said, fight of the year. We had a fight between Shane Burgos and Billy Quarantillo that normally would get a fight of the night. I think about Frankie Edgar versus Marlon Vera. It wasn't a great fight, but it still ended spectacular. We had Alex Pereira flying knee, Bobby Green, of all things, getting a punch, walk-off knockout, not known for it. Chris Curtis, some unbelievable story, come from behind. Emrah Shabazian had some great scrambles. Ian Gary fade back right hand with great promo. Spinning wheel kick knockout by Chris Barnett in a great promo. So the first 3 fights kind of sucked. But other than that, everything else was spectacular. I'm with you. I'm going A+. Everyone's throwing out A+. Adam Duffy's throwing out A+. So a lot of A+ going on in the Duffy family. Kyle Lahi throwing out an A+. Alan McDonald's throwing out an A+. Austin Genola is going with the card of the year. Seems like everyone extremely, extremely happy. So A+ Laurent. Everyone's calling it the card of the year. So there you go. Have it. This is the toughest question because the chat's been beaming. It's been great. Who has been your listener of the evening?
You know what? We got a lot of the OGs here. Austin's been Austin's been all over the place. For a guy who disappeared for 20 minutes, he might still have landed the most significant posts of the entire chat.
Oh, Diva was up there. Diva was up there.
Yeah, Dev Goes Fishing was all over the place. Kyle was all over.
Why do I keep calling him Devo? I'm sorry, I can't. That's because it's late. It's Dev Goes Fishing.
Devo Goes Fishing sounds like a really fun thing.
Yeah.
You know what? Last time Adam Duffy showed up, he tapped out before the end, and so I said terrible things about him after he was gone. This time, since he stayed, contributed the whole time, only polluted my chat stream with a little bit of boxing talk. I'm gonna give it to Adam Duffy, the kind of near newcomer, and I'm not biased in any way.
All right, Adam Duffy is Ben's pick. I'm gonna obviously we have all the guys who always kill it. We can't pick those guys because those guys always kill it, and they're in that elite category no matter what. All the guys you mentioned. So I'm actually good with I think is a newcomer is, and they haven't been here for a while, but they were crushing it early. Mbaye,
yeah.
Mbaye, that person was crushing it with the comments, some really good comments. So that was my listener. So you guys have it. We have covered all the fights from UFC 268. It was a really fun card. Card of the year. So everyone's really in high spirits. Everyone's feeling really great. So do this. Let's keep the positive. How about you share this? You like it? And return next week. Me and Ben will be breaking down next week card. Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez. Sounds like it's actually going to happen. And me and Ben will be breaking down the film, making our predictions this week. That'll come out Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. And then we'll be back right after that to talk it all again. So in the meantime, please share, please like, please subscribe, do all that good stuff. Help us out. He's Ben. I'm Keith. See you guys next time.